Before I was in Restore, I would kind of define my life by 3 words: angry, ashamed, and anxious. And that's what I lived in every day. And those feelings and those thoughts controlled everything, and living in knowing what the Lord said, but not applying it to those things that I know needed it most. Knowing God's story has allowed me to reframe everything that I've known growing up. I've always known relationships to be something that would hurt me. And living only in the piece of God's story that was the fall and was the disaster. But walking through Restore has shown me that my story is just part of God's story, and the fall is part of God's story, and God chose for the fall to be a part of his story to reveal his glory further. And that's just something that's really sweet that I've learned about my story, is that it's just to further God's glory. I have always seen God as a harsh God, ready to strike down judgment. I didn't have my act together. I wasn't doing good enough. I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't ready for him to use me or to even just be with me. But man, Restore has just allowed me space to sit with God and to hear him say, like, I created you worthy, and you never had to do anything for that. And of course, you know that being in the church, but learning how to apply that practically to those things you struggle with most is amazing. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't make the time to pay attention to it. My desire to abide wasn't just on my side. Jesus Christ wants to abide with me too. And when I weep, he weeps. And in my deepest pain, that is where he has his hand on me the most. There are times where my mess and my sin and my pain, I just want to sweep under the rug. Like, you don't need to see that, Lord. You don't want that part. But he does. And that's what abiding is every moment just opening your heart to the Lord and inviting Holy Spirit in to not just the praise and the joy, but also the anger and the doubt and the insecurity. It doesn't have to be a mountaintop that the Lord's with you, because he's going to bring you out of that valley, and he's going to be with you on the mountaintop, of course, but he's also there in the valley. Being able to be in a group of people who know my story and know the devastation, and being met only with encouragement, and being met with, remember who God is, not just what you feel, has been one of the most valuable things that I could have ever gained. Being vulnerable with people felt awful. But once I opened my heart to that, it was an avenue for the Lord's grace and the Lord's kindness to just be spread on me. I believe it's Romans 8:26 that says, we don't know how to pray as we should, but the Lord intercedes for us. And one of the most profound things in Restore was that Jesus and the Holy Spirit are constantly interceding for me, and I would not be able to sustain myself if that was not happening. And I feel like a lot of times, even walking through Restore, the only prayers I've known have been tears and thank you, and that's enough. Because the Spirit and Jesus know my story better than I do, and they know how to pray for me better than anyone else does. I've been called to live differently and just giving myself some grace, because there's always enough grace. And learning what it means to truly and utterly cast all my cares on the Lord at 60 seconds a minute, just laying it down and surrendering it. And He's called me to love differently in meeting people where they are, not where I think that they should be, before I can really love them, and before I think that God can use them. Because in the group that I was in Restore, even if I thought like, man, that's a lot, or that's not enough to be used, like those are the people that have helped lift me up more than I could ever imagine.